Warning. This episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Give us 1 hour and we'll help you change the way you think about happiness. Harvesting Happiness with Lisa Cypers Kamen is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Each week, Lisa spotlights diverse trendsetters and change agents who are the greatest contemporary thinkers and doers, devoting their lives to creating a better world in which to live. Your host, Lisa Cypers Kamen, is a widely recognized applied positive psychology expert, author, documentary filmmaker, and lecturer specializing in optimal lifestyle management. Let's get to it. Here's Lisa.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us on today's show, where you will learn about women's wellness, how to take charge of our health naturally. My first guest is Dr. Aviva Romm, MD. She is the mother of 4 grown children, a Yale-trained physician specializing in integrative medicine for women and children, a midwife, an herbalist, and an award-winning author. Aviva has spent nearly 30 years as a healthcare practitioner and advocate for health and environmental concerns of women and kids. She is on fire, and I can attest to this, about creating a better world for all. And her newest book is entitled Hormone Intelligence, the complete guide to calming hormone chaos and restoring your body's natural blueprint for well-being. Aviva, thanks so much for joining me on the show. And I'm grinning from ear to ear. And I'm so excited to talk with you.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you too.
Yeah, this is a subject that, as a woman, and a woman who has been through perimenopause, been through menopause, and is managing hormones, power surges, and electricity galore, I have an interest in this subject, a deep one. And I have a daughter, so I'm also invested in her welfare and wellness.
I love it. Yeah, I'm in the same hormonal
category.
As you. Yes, I have just officially been in menopause since last November. So 6 months in, and it's a whole new part of life. It's like when we go through puberty or when we become moms, I don't think people prepare us the same way as for what menopause means. But yeah. I'm here with you in it, sister.
We're here together with humor and lust and passion and power and hormones and hot flashes and the whole deal. But before we jump into that, I want to give our listeners a little bit more about your background, because you have a most interesting career path, starting as a university student at age 15.
Yep. I was always a bit of a science geek and a word geek. So I was that spelling bee science fair kid and really wanted to be a physician, and also was living in a housing project in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment that I was sharing with my mom and my brother. And I was commuting almost 2 hours a day to go to school. I gained like 40 pounds that year with stress. I had great grades. I was on a national champion debate team, and I knew something had to give. So I actually was like, well, maybe I could just skip high school and go to college. And so I wrote a letter to Johns Hopkins University and asked them if they would just take me right into college, and so I could go right to medical school.
Oh my God.
And this was back in 1980. And somebody actually, like, no email or anything like that. Somebody actually, I had to, lick the envelope and put a stamp on it, put it in the mailbox. And somebody actually read it and wrote me back and said, well, we can't take you because you're too young. But there is a school called Simon's Rock of Bard College that does take young, gifted students. And I applied and I got a scholarship and I went. And then within 3 months of being there, I got exposed to natural medicine, which was not called natural medicine. There was no name for it at the time. It was just weird at the time. Healthy eating, organics, growing food, midwifery, home birth, herbal medicine, massage, acupuncture, meditation. And I left school and apprenticed myself to a midwife and started studying everything I could about herbal medicine. And fast forward, I spent 20 plus years practicing as a home birth midwife, became, inarguably, it's easy to say because it's true. So it always sounds like bragging, but probably the leading or one of the 3 leading women herbalists for Western herbal medicine in the world. And realized I had to do something to bridge the gap, because back in the day, natural medicine wasn't what it is. Home birth midwifery was very fringe, in fact, illegal where I practiced. And so when people did need to interface with the medical community, it was so polarized, right? You were either completely outside the box with people like me who had self-studied and had a little information to share, or you were completely in the medical model, which was so conservative at the time. Like the idea of herbs or diet in conventional medicine in 1981
didn't exist.
Yeah. And even well into the 90s, it didn't. And so I made the decision to go back, because remember, I had gone to college at 15, left at 16. So I had to go back. I had to complete my undergraduate, do my post-bac pre-med prereqs, and then take my MCATs. And I had gone to college so young that I had never even taken an SAT. So I'm probably one of the few people in the country who's gone to medical school without an SAT, and went to med school with, by then, 4 kids who were tweens and teens. And yeah, that's how it went. And so then I went to Yale for my med school. I did my internship in internal medicine there, and then I did my residency in family medicine with obstetrics and a specialty in integrative women and children's health at Tufts. And now have just been bridging that pre-med world that I had with the now MD world. And it's an amazing journey. It's a great ride. And I wrote a bunch of books in the meanwhile. I wrote some books before med school, some books after. I ran a national nonprofit for herbalists, lots and lots of interesting things along the way. And now I have 4 phenomenally wonderful and just beautiful grown children and 2 grandchildren.
Wow. What an amazing journey you have had. And the world has thankfully caught up with, your passions and your theories and your practices.
It's really interesting that you say that, because on one hand, it really is phenomenal. I mean, it's been an amazing thing to be able to reach so many people. And now with a voice of 37 years of experience doing this. On the other hand, there's so much noise out there. And especially as a woman in menopause, I'm turning 55 this year. You can have an influencer, I'm doing air quotes here, influencer who's, 24 and writing about all the things that I'm writing about, but she knows how to do reels and she knows how to do TikTok and she's got 2 million followers. And it's all based on stuff that she's reading from other people. I'm not knocking any of those people. They can be doing phenomenal work. But I would say that the space is very noisy. Finding ways to have an authentic and strong leadership voice in that has naturally happened for me. But as a woman internally, there's a lot of learning to not compare and despair or think, if I were younger now, I'd have this big, you know what I mean? It's like, you just can't compare.
No.
So it's an interesting shift in the space in that at one point I was one of the only people doing it. And now everyone's talking about adaptogens or probiotics or your period or whatever it is. So it's interesting.
But, there's something about this wisdom intelligence that is built into the aging process.
Totally.
That, yes, there are plenty of, people out there that can espouse the latest and greatest theories and have a gazillion followers and, are putting work out there that are relying upon sources of others. But at the end of the day, being that wise woman that has all the history, you can't buy that. I don't think that is something that is a commodity that can be purchased.
Yeah. And also, the bottom line is, to me, it's so wonderful that this new way of thinking and being, especially among young women, especially among influencers, is actually making changes, right? This generation who is super, super communications and internet savvy, not that we're not, obviously we are, we're here doing this too, but is really able to quickly leverage and shift thought. And I think the fact that women are now, especially young women, are really becoming more body literate, more sexually literate, more confident, and more empowered in their voices, it really is a huge moment of opportunity for women's empowerment, but also to change the way healthcare is practiced.
And it also is its own form of public health.
It is. I deeply believe that. I deeply believe in the importance of what I call, and I didn't make this term up, but the citizen scientist. The person who has period pain, has constipation, has pain with sex, goes to their doctor or goes to 5 doctors, as the case may be, maybe for several years, and keeps being told, oh, that's normal because you're a woman. That's normal because you're a woman. And then one day she goes on the internet and she finds a chat room or a website or an Instagram feed that starts talking about endometriosis. And she's like, oh, that's what I have. And she feels normal, even if now she knows she has a condition, but she can do something about it. And to me, it's a huge act of public health that we need. And it's, I hear a lot of criticism from, like the medical model, or you read in the New York Times, there's one particular doctor who loves to tear down Goop, for example. And I say, you know what? Nothing is perfect, but here's the reality is women are flocking to sites like Goop and others because there is a huge gap in what conventional medicine has to offer. And those sites actually provide sometimes that aha moment that allows a woman to figure out what's really going on that the medical model isn't talking about.
Well, let's chat about that for a second. In terms of the current medical model, integrative medicine aside, if you don't fall in, right? If you can't fall into a category, then you don't necessarily get treated.
Exactly. And some of the conditions that women experience, whether it is hypothyroidism, let's think about hypothyroidism. What are the symptoms? Some fatigue, a little bit of depression, maybe a little anxiety, some weight gain, your hair's a little dry, you're a little constipated. Anybody could have that at any time. And so what happens is a woman goes in with those symptoms and she's, if she even gets a word in edgewise, because most doctors interrupt after the first 90 seconds and most doctors have 7 to 12 minutes for an appointment. So in that 7 to 12 minutes for being interrupted at 90 seconds, she's supposed to say, I've got this, and this going on. Then the doctor says, well, that's pretty normal. You're probably just stressed, or you've got young kids, or you're working. So you're fine. You're stressed. Do some meditation, get some more exercise, and you're sent on your way. That's not an answer. And this is happening to women with so many conditions, because a lot of these conditions, whether it's endometriosis or PCOS or Hashimoto's, if you're not taught to look for the subtle symptoms, there's a really good chance you'll miss them. And I can tell you in med school, we're not taught about women's health, which is on the lowest possible research agenda medically and public health wise also. So there's so much need for these conversations, but also for these individuals who have either overcome these conditions themselves and are now writing and sharing about it, or who are on the journey of learning about them, or, the work you're doing, sharing out the work of people like me who are doing the work of trying to make a difference for women individually and change the system.
And when we talk about citizen science, I love that term, by the way. I have not heard that up until now, but I will be repeating it and giving credit to you. The citizen scientists out there, sometimes that's the only way we learn. I happen to have a Graves' disease. I manage it completely nutritionally. I'm sharing it not because don't necessarily want people knowing my business, but I have this, and I was given one set of criteria of how this is handled, and that was that. You remove the thyroid and replace it with synthetic thyroid hormone, and you go live your life. Well, I'm not giving up my body parts so quickly.
Yeah, and there's a time and place for it. I've had patients who I've sent in for ablation or surgical thyroidectomy. But what happens with medicine is, one, that's all we learn, right? We jump from A to Z. Like, symptom is A, diagnosis is, so we jump from B to Z. A is the symptoms, B is the diagnosis, and then Z, you're in surgery or getting medication. But where's the discussion about, maybe we can try diet, or maybe there's some supplements,
Yes.
or maybe this has to do with celiac disease or something else. And none of that is woo-woo. It's all, it's not fringe. There's good science. It's just, unfortunately, that it's not the science we're taught in medical school too often.
And when we talk about inflammation as being the root of so many diseases, that, I think the empowering part of what you have done in Hormone Intelligence, the complete guide, I have to give the whole title, Hormone Intelligence, the complete guide to calming hormone chaos and restoring your body's natural blueprint for well-being. When we're able to really focus on that inflammation, whether it's through diet, lifestyle, supplementation, whatever it is, we take control of our lives and our health.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, we forget that it's not just, let's not just eat well because we have this symptom, but We know from studies that have been published in places like the New England Journal of Medicine, we're not talking about some fringe journal published in who knows where.
Yeah.
In some little tiny country in the middle of, in the middle of the ocean. We're talking about a substantial medical journal where the data is really clear that at least 90% of all chronic illness has nothing to do with genetics. It has to do with inflammation, diet, exercise, stress, and smoking. Those are the big five, factors.
We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to continue the conversation with Dr. Aviva Romm. We're talking about her newest book, Hormone Intelligence, the complete guide to calming hormone chaos and restoring your body's natural blueprint for well-being. To learn more, please visit avivaromm.com, on Twitter at Aviva Romm, on Facebook, Aviva Romm MD, and on Instagram, that handle is Dr. Aviva Romm. Here comes the pause. We'll be right back, and that is a guarantee. Hang on. Before we pause, I want to remind everyone how great it feels to be in control of our lives and how joyful good hair days make us feel. Thanks to Nutrafol, I'm focused on growing thicker, fuller, healthier, and happier hair from the inside out. Millions of Americans experience thinning hair. It's common, even normal, and not widely spoken about. Hair loss can be caused by several factors like styling tools, stress, lifestyle, genetics, hormonal shifts like menopause, and more. Control isn't given, it's taken. And that's why it's time to take control of your hair growth now. Now is the time to have lovelier locks and better well-being with Nutrafol. Start by visiting Nutrafol.com to take their hair wellness quiz for customized product recommendations. Nutrafol is 100% drug-free, physician-formulated, potent, natural botanicals designed for a whole body health and hair as strong as you are. Nutrafol is natural and effective in reducing hair shedding and improving hair growth. In clinical studies, Nutrafol users experience thicker and stronger tresses in 3 to 6 months. 72% of men saw more scalp coverage and 86% of women saw improved growth after 6 months of use. What I love most about Nutrafol is that in addition to beautiful hair, the ingredients help me get a handle on better sleep, stress response, skin, nails, and libido. Who wouldn't want that? Join me and thousands of others who are standing up for our strands with Nutrafol to help achieve hair growth naturally. You deserve hair as strong as you are. You can grow thicker and healthier hair and support our show by going to Nutrafol.com and using promo code HAPPINESS to save $15 off your first month subscription. This is their best offer available anywhere, and it's only available to U.S. customers for a limited time, plus free shipping on every order. Get $15 off at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code happiness for hair as strong as you are. Now let's take that break. We'll be right back.
To learn more about cultivating sustainable well-being at home and the office, visit harvestinghappiness.com and explore Lisa's experiential on-site brain fitness workshops, corporate programming, and speaking engagement services.
And we're back. But before we get back to it, let's talk about the importance of self-care and clean living. When we take good care of our bodies, minds, and spirits, we tend to be happier folks. When it comes to personal hygiene products, who's got time and energy to analyze every ingredient? And some of the stuff you can't even pronounce. Native cares about what we put on our bodies, and that's why I've been a devotee of Native personal care products for years. Best known for their aluminum-free deodorant, Native wants to help you practice safe sweat. That's why Native keeps their ingredient list bare naked with coconut oil, shea butter, and baking soda. I work out daily and love to sweat, but what I don't love is the stink. Truth be told, I'm a mega schwitzer who is crazy about Native deodorant. Native is all about stopping the stink the right way. That's the Native difference. Native deodorant checks important performance boxes like 24-hour odor protection, naturally derived ingredients, a smooth residue-free application, and more than 10 heavenly scents to choose from. My personal go-to is sea salt and cedar. Be sure to also check out Native's partnership with Baked by Melissa, a limited edition collection that smells good enough to eat, created to make every day a little sweeter, inspired by the signature cupcake sensation. All native products are thoughtfully formulated to make clean, simple, and effective personal care products. Go native and elevate your self-care to the next level. Smell and feel fresh all day long with Native. Get 20% off your first order by going to nativedeo.com/harvesting or use promo code harvesting at checkout. That's nativedeo.com/harvesting or use promo code harvesting at checkout for 20% off your first order. Now let's get back to it. And we're back, continuing the conversation with my guest today, Dr. Aviva Romm. We're talking about women's wellness, taking charge of our health naturally. Let's get back to it. So, Aviva, prior to the break, you had began to talk about a study, and I'd love for you to pick up where we left off.
So there was a study done, just talking about this idea that it's not just about drugs and surgery, but that there are other factors that could, and you mentioned the psychosocial factors. There was this study called the Inter-Heart Study, and it's what's called a multi-center study. So data was gathered from many, many different health clinics, and it looked at the impact of loneliness on women's health. And the researchers, and there were something like 17,000 people in the study, and the researchers found that for women, and it's probably true for men too, but the study was on women, that loneliness increased a risk of heart attack or stroke more than diabetes, cigarette smoking, and obesity combined together. And, what's powerful is the antidote is something that women have always known and done. It's what we're doing right here is gathering and connecting with each other and supporting each other and lifting each other up. And in that connection, we're actually creating hormones and chemicals that counteract the impact of stress and loneliness on our heart and our mind. And I think that's so beautiful and powerful.
I think so too. And you mentioned something in our chat before we got going today. You talked about spiritual medicine, and I don't think you meant it in the liturgical sense. I think you meant it in the soulful sense.
I did. I think that one thing is that our hormones are chemical messengers. And we also know that they do some really powerful things. For example, estrogen in the middle of our menstrual cycles, so, around ovulation, actually makes us more visually and emotionally aware of the facial and emotional gestures of other people. We know that oxytocin is a hormone that allows us to connect and have more empathy, but also more courage. There's some really deep and powerful inner knowing that I truly believe is part of hormone intelligence. I call her my inner wise woman because I like to anthropomorphize, and then I can talk to her and listen to her. We can call her whatever we want, or maybe it's not a her for you. But tapping into the deeper wisdom of our hormones, our biology, our connection to the planet and life cycles is a part of healing that is, certainly if you have cancer, you may need chemotherapy or surgery. I'm not saying that it's instead of, but it's the part of medicine that conventional medicine has so sorely neglected. And, hearkening back to loneliness, how many doctors ask their patients, are you lonely? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Are you connecting with other people? Especially right now with the pandemic. How many people ask a person who's struggling with a post-heart attack? Because we know that people after a heart attack who have someone to care for them and love them and support them in the first year are far less likely to die in that first year and far less likely to ever have another heart attack. So where are we looking at the importance of these deep spiritual values and our connection to our planet that influences our health, our hormone health, and our kind of deeper core needs as women, which we're often so taught to neglect too.
What I'm hearing you say, in my view, is about the art in medical arts. You're putting back that sort of artful, creative, intuitive side in service to the healing. So it's treating the whole person, not just the condition and the symptoms. Yes,
I say the art of well-being and the science of being well. That's how I think of it.
Perfectly said. Good doctor. Perfectly said.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about herbs and supplements and hormone replacement therapy, because all of them have pros and cons. particularly if you don't know how to use any of them.
Yes. I mean, so herbs and supplements, the biggest risks with those are either taking too much of something, because most of the herbs and supplements on the market, like the common ones out there, aren't going to kill you if you take a normal dose of them. But if you're taking, obviously too much of something, even too much vitamin B6 can cause nerve problems, for example. I would say the even bigger risk, though, with herbs and supplements is just that if you use them instead of getting the medical treatment that you might actually need. But otherwise, I think herbs and supplements are just kind of an extension of food. They're a little bit like food 2.0 in that, we eat our kale. We don't think of kale as an herb, but it is an herb. But if you were to take stinging nettles as a tea, it's got basically everything in it that kale has. And you can use nettles as a cooked vegetable. But when we start to concentrate it and then take it more medicinally, then it's a medicine. Similarly, I mean, our food has nutrients in it. And I'm such a huge proponent of getting everything we need from our food first and not having to supplement, and certainly not having to take a lot of supplements. But we know that our modern diets are often quite depleted in the nutrients we need. Even the foods themselves don't have the same nutrient quantities as our grandmothers. An orange today doesn't have the same amount of vitamin C, for example, as an orange in 1950. It just doesn't. And good studies have been done
That's interesting.
that. Yeah. And also we just get really busy. So how many women, I mean, I can't tell you how many women I see that skip meals on the regular, or, have the coffee in the morning and then by mid-morning they're having the sugar crash. So they're having the Danish and don't get the, the quality protein or fat or micronutrients that they need. So there's a time and place for, it's kind of like a daily multivitamin. A lot of women aren't getting enough vitamin D, enough magnesium. And then there are some really phenomenal studies showing that things like magnesium can help with sleep, or calcium can help with even significant period pain, or St. John's wort can help with depression, or vitamin B6 can help with severe PMS symptoms. So there's good data out there. When it comes to hormone replacement therapy, I think that basically the most important thing is that a woman, one, understand the general risks and benefits, understand what are not benefits, because there's a lot of misinformation about what hormone replacement therapy can do, and a lot of that's been overblown. But then you also have to know your individual risks. So for example, I've seen women who have come to me from another functional or integrative doctor who put them on bioidentical hormones, and now the woman's coming to me because she's having horrible uterine bleeding and her doctor's telling her she might need a hysterectomy. And I'm like, have you tried coming off the estrogen? And
Wow.
Of course, I say it in the kindest way. And I've had several women who have had, just in the past few years, hysterectomies they didn't end up needing, that they didn't have the hysterectomy that was being recommended because they just came off of too much estrogen. And that was what was causing the bleeding. So I'm a fan of using what is best for you. If you can't sleep and you're miserable, progesterone orally can be a lifesaver. If you are having vaginal dryness and you're having to pee every 2 minutes because you have something called genitourinary syndrome of menopause, or you just can't have sex because it hurts too much because your vag is dry, then some topical estrogen can be like, it can feel like the fountain of youth, or at least like, yeah. So, I have no problem with women using those as long as their physician or they're doing the research themselves to know what the pros and cons are, and also not staying on it forever, because that's really where the bigger risk comes to, is even for women who are otherwise healthy and don't have risks, but you're just like, you got put on it when you were 48 and you're still on it when you're 72. Come on.
There's no need. And that doesn't mean you're not having sex at that age.
No, it doesn't. In fact, you know what? It's really amazing. 20-year-olds are having less sex than they have historically in generations, because they're on their devices so much at night instead of on each other. And then the women over 50 are having the best sex of their lives, because we know what we like, we know what we want, we know how to express it and ask for it, we know how to satisfy ourselves if we don't have someone to do it with. And when you're in a long-term relationship too, all the research that's been pouring out over the past maybe decade has shown 50s, 60s, 70s, great sex. So something to look forward to, and something that younger women can learn from us menopausal hotties.
Yeah.
Literally, literally hotties, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I
because
think so.
they eat,
Literal
they eat is
hotties,
something.
literal and figurative hotties that,
Yes, yes.
there is something to be said when you don't have to worry about unwanted pregnancy. The kids
Yeah,
have flown the coop, although they do boomerang back now and again, at least on
yep,
my side and yours.
totally.
But, it's on, I think, for this phase of life. Yay.
Yes, totally.
We are out of time. You, my dear, I hope you'll come back and hang out with me. We got more conversations to have.
I would love that. That'd be
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me talk about this book, because I'm very, very excited about it. But just even if nobody ever buys the book, just hearing the conversation and just being able to hear words like period and menopause and sex and just vagina, and being able to just talk about it is so important.
To speak our truths.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. The book we've been speaking about is Hormone Intelligence, the complete guide to calming hormone chaos and restoring your body's natural blueprint for well-being. To learn more about Dr. Aviva Romm, please visit avivaromm.com, on Twitter at Aviva Romm, on Facebook, Aviva Romm MD, and Instagram is Dr. Aviva Romm. Here comes the break. Just a little extra minute here. Before we break, I want to share the joys of my guilt-free playtime pleasure. When I've got a few minutes to spare, I love to amuse myself with Best Fiends, my favorite casual mobile game for grown-ups. Best Fiends is the best action-packed, brain-boosting puzzle game on the planet. Best Fiends is my go-to digital play pal, and I'm happily hooked. And if you're anything like me, you will be too. I love playing Best Fiends with friends in different cities. It's a way for us to connect, blow off some steam, and share some laughs. Not to brag or anything, but I'm charging full steam ahead towards level 6,810 and moving beyond. The fun never ends at Best Fiends because there's always fresh content and new challenging adventures to conquer. I pinky swear you'll never be bored or run out of goals to achieve. Don't blame me if you end up kind of obsessed. Need a little digital distraction or some mindful mindlessness? Stress less and play more. Come join me and more than 100 million downloads for a mental pick-me-up. Download Best Fiends free today on the App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. Now, let's go take that break.
Did you know that happiness is actually good for your health? Happy people live longer, are more productive, and make better partners, parents, and professionals. Connect with us on Facebook at Harvesting Happiness and follow Lisa on Twitter at Lisa Kamen for a daily dose of inspiration.
And we're back, continuing the conversation about women's wellness, taking charge of our health naturally. My next guest is Dina Falconi, who is a clinical herbalist with a strong focus on food activism and nutritional healing. An avid gardener, wildcrafter, and permaculturist, Dina has been teaching classes about the use of herbs for food, medicine, and personal care, including wild food foraging and cooking for more than 30 years. She offers online courses in the Wild Kitchen with Dina Falconi. She's also the author of Foraging and Feasting, a field guide and wild food cookbook. And Dina is in the house. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for agreeing to be on the show, because we live near one another, but we've never met. But I'm a huge fan of what you are doing and what you have created and what you're teaching. And I would love for you to share with our audience ways to grow food and herbs that can change the way we feel for the better.
Great. So just as a fun note, a lot of what I teach is we don't even have to grow it. It's already growing. And we learn the plants that surround us and how to identify them and how to use them for food and medicine. So, and then we can also choose to grow them. But part of the fun, the Foraging and Feasting book that, you mentioned, is all about getting people outside to connect to their ecosystem, to learn the plants that grow near them, and then to identify them and use them ethnobotanically speaking for food, for medicine, and so on. So that's just kind of to say that you don't have to garden even. All the good stuff is out there.
I like that even better.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And yet I am also a gardener because I do love to garden, but the gardens are very, very wild, and they include tons of the wild plants that you're going to meet that are considered weeds. And a lot of those weeds are prime examples of potent food and medicine. So that's another really kind of mind, how would you say, a shift in thinking when something looks like a weed and in fact it's your food or medicine, and more potent perhaps than something you would grow in the garden. So that, you know, that's a big part of what I share with people, is to get out there. And I will also add that getting outside into the elements is a big part of what I consider therapeutic. You know, being in the sun, being in the rain, being in the snow, and moving your body and gathering food and medicine directly from the mother is therapeutic in itself. You know, that act may be more therapeutic even than what you put into your body, or both of them are quite useful. So that's a whole other layer to just consider, you know, and in the theme of how we can create health, it really has to do with a whole lifestyle approach. So I focus on food, I focus on herbs, but, you know, in my clinical practice, a big thing that we do is talk about the context of everything. You know, where is that person? How is that person living? Are they moving their bodies? Are they resting well? You know, are they exposed again to the elements, to the outside, to the cosmic forces? You know, can they see stars and things like that? That will really affect our hormonal health and our well-being in general. But so back to that more narrow question, or I shouldn't say narrow, but specific around food and medicine related to what you can grow. Or no, let's talk about what you can find out there.
Yeah.
You know, let's yeah.
Tell me about the weeds I should be eating.
Exactly. But also, I want to, before we even go into that, and this is a big thing too for clients who will call and say, you know, I have this health issue, can you help me with it? And as a holistic practitioner, which is how I practice, using food and herbs and lifestyle, I don't treat diseases ever. It's all about working with the whole system within the human being. So it's always working with the person in front of me and addressing their specific situation, not the disease. It's not a disease-focused practice. And so a big part, though, before, you know, we go into even using any herbs, is to talk about the food piece. And it doesn't have to be food that you're growing or gathering, which of course is also amazing, but the food piece from a broader perspective, which has to do with macronutrients. So that's where you're talking about how much carbohydrate are you actually eating, how much protein are you eating, and this is all from whole food form. This is not protein powders or isolates or anything. We're talking about, you know, whole natural foods, and within that, you know, within that framework, what amount of carbohydrate intake is going on? What are you meeting your protein needs? So those are pretty critical pieces right there, because I've been a student of nutrition, you know, back in the East Village days since I was a little girl, actually, you know, and so that's 30 plus years ago. This nutrition focus really stayed with me, and I've come to feel that the premise for health it has to do with nutrient density, so that we're getting all the nutrient needs that all the nutrient needs met from whole food form, but that we're also doing it in a way where we can keep our blood sugar stable. That was never talked about. I mean, that was never talked about, you know, and if I was to go to an herb conference and people are dealing with all sorts of blood sugar disorders, which lead to many, many things, no one talks about that chemistry, that simple blood sugar stability chemical, you know, activity in the body is the foundation for health in all ways. So, you know, meaning hormonal health, mood, you know, insomnia, et cetera. Just the things that are plaguing most of us can be addressed by keeping your blood sugar in a healthy range. So, yeah, you know that. You said, amen, you got it.
Yeah, it's keeping the engine tuned.
Exactly. And the other piece to that is making sure that you're meeting your protein needs, again, from whole foods. So what does that look like for, you know, each of us? That's different depending on our sex, our age, our activity level, and so on. But it's usually a little bit higher than what most people are meeting, you know,
Really?
what most people are eating. Yeah, I'd say for the average woman that's 5'5", she needs about 75 grams of protein a day. That's grams of protein, you know, that you would deduce out or extract from the whole food that we're eating. So it isn't it's not 2.5 ounces or whatever that adds up to, 3 ounces of pure protein. That's not how we look at it. I hope this is making sense.
Well, it is making sense, but many of us are told that a serving of protein is a small little hand-sized piece of meat. And what I'm hearing you suggest is it's beyond that.
Well, it depends how big your hand is and the density of that portion, but you could be not far off. You could be where, you're looking at a 3-ounce portion of an animal kingdom food that can include, if one eats dairy, a good raw grass-fed cheese. I mean, so you're looking at 3 ounces of a combination, or a piece of grass-fed beef or a piece of wild salmon. They can be 3 ounces, and in that you get 21 grams of protein. So that's a guesstimate right there.
But that's not everything. We have to do that 3 or 4 times.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
That's right. And so you were saying that fistful or whatever would be the daily need?
No. I'm saying that's considered a serving, and that we need multiple servings of that in a day.
Exactly.
And I bet you're right. We're not getting enough based on that.
Your comment is probably you're right on point. If you do that amount 3 or 4 times a day, you're going to be getting it. And so, in the context, let's say, of a client who comes in dealing with hormonal issues, since that's a bit of Aviva's theme, we really want to, again, check that blood sugar stability question. And again, there's a number for that, which is about 125 grams of carbohydrate on average. That's a lot for some people, but probably most people shouldn't go over that. And if, with a client, you can also assess that. And again, from whole foods and, slow carb foods is ideal. So you're not eating a lot of even raisins or dates or things like that, or even whole grains, which can be a lot of sugar at one time. But so the point is you're keeping your carb level at a point where your blood sugar is not screaming up and down. That's one piece of it. And that alone could help somebody with heavy-duty menopausal issues or wacky thyroid issues, because there's so many cascades that follow that instability. So if you take care of it and stabilize it, the adrenals are freed to do good things, to take care of the other things that need to happen. So I hope that this is making sense. But so the carb level is right, and then let's say the client too, the protein need needs to be met, because if it isn't, then they can't produce the appropriate enzymes, and all of the body material is protein. I mean, it's mixed with some minerals and vitamins and, of course, fat. But the body is made of protein. Brain chemistry needs protein. Hormones need protein. So that's kind of like, okay, somebody comes to the office, they want to talk about herbs, and I'm going to make them talk about food. I'm going to go through their menus heavily to make sure that they're in that right zone for who they are. And all the while, let's just not forget that we need to have all the other micronutrients in the body, and they're going to be met, again, with whole food form. And that's talking about all the minerals. It's talking about, the B vitamins and also the fat-soluble vitamins that we call activators. And they have to do with activating the body so that it can use the protein to synthesize tissue or create hormones or absorb minerals. So if we don't have a good amount of D in the body, or primarily D at that point, or K2, we're not going to take in our minerals very well. So there's this whole story that unfolds that, of course, I'm really excited about. And I try to get that person across the table to get excited too.
It's hugely exciting. We are going to need to go to a break in a minute. And before we do, I want to just touch upon the therapeutic properties of food and herbs that can't be replicated in pharmaceuticals, right? That the idea is that if we're eating well and paying attention, we can't be nourished from the drugs in the same way that we can be from this high quality food, the fuel.
You're absolutely right. Exactly. So a medication can be life-saving and can be really important, but health does not depend on it, meaning your well-being doesn't grow from that, but it can be helpful in creating, I try to always be kind to the pharmaceuticals that really can save people and really help them. I do have a bias to say that mostly they're awful, and they're more negative, and they cause a lot of problems, and they don't get to the core issue of helping the human body find its own dynamic homeostasis. In fact, they're usually repressive, and so they end up causing more problems down the line. But sometimes they're very appropriate, so I don't want to downplay their importance, but they don't have to do with health. They have to do with remediating something. And then in a sense it is health, so I shouldn't say that either, but they don't have to do with creating naturally occurring homeostatic health. They have to do with preventing, something like an asthma medicine. Yeah, exactly.
You might need it for triage. You've got dangerously high blood pressure and you need to lower it quickly, or you are having a heart attack and you need to, these medications can and do save lives, but they're not a substitute for the self-care, right? That's what I think I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. I call the self-care piece is we feed our bodies so that it can take care of us, so that it has the capacity to heal and to balance and to help us ride our waves of stress, of trauma, ride our waves of excitement, whatever it is. We have the ability to live a full life if we feed our organism well. So, and that feeding the organism well is the art and the science, of this nutrition piece. And it's ever evolving and it's not a static thing.
Let's take our break and then we'll come back and we'll continue the conversation with Dina Falconi. We're talking about her book, Foraging and Feasting, a Field Guide and Wild Food Cookbook. She also delivers online classes in the Wild Kitchen with Dina Falconi. To learn more, please visit www.inthewild.kitchen and botanicalartspress.com. On Facebook, you can find her at Foraging and Feasting. And on Instagram, you can also find her at Foraging and Feasting. And you can also check her out on YouTube at Dina Falconi. Here comes the pause. We'll be right back. And that is a promise.
Who says money can't buy happiness? Whether you are a skeptic or seeker, check out Lisa's new book. Are we happy yet? 8 Keys to Unlocking a Joyful Life. A boot camp manual for greater emotional fitness is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, IndieBound, and HarvestingHappiness.com. Here's a truth bomb. Emotions are contagious, and happiness is a universally desired state. But we tend to forget that we all have the freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable each day, regardless of external circumstances. Explore the journey of human happiness, how to find it and keep it, with Lisa's documentary film, H Factor. Where is your heart? Visit HarvestingHappiness.com to learn more.
What is your happiness?
And we're back, continuing the conversation today. We're talking about women's wellness, taking charge of our health naturally. Let's get back to the conversation with my guest today, Dina Falconi. Prior to the break, we were talking really about creating a solid base with the foods that we eat and how we take care of our mind, body, and spirit with nutrition. But I want to turn the conversation a little bit to the book, Foraging and Feasting, and it's how we use the foods and herbs that we find out in the world, how it can help us normalize our chemistry and just be generally more healthy.
Yes, if we can just recap quickly that we're stabilizing our blood sugar and we're eating the protein that we need, the book Foraging and Feasting can be used to help you get out there and meet the wild plants that then you can incorporate into your menu. So the cookbook, part of it is really a celebration of whole foods, nutritious, nutrient-dense whole foods, and it taps the wild plants that are outside and you integrate them into your recipes. I would say that when you're talking about health and well-being, the foundational piece is that blood chemistry. When we talk about foraging and feasting, we're talking about players that can be used within that framework or in that mindset. So, if it's nettle time, you can go out there and meet nettle. And in the book Foraging and Feasting, we really detail how you ID the plant. That's super important. And then you can incorporate nettle into your menu in so many different ways. Nettle, what does nettle offer? I mean, it's super nutrient dense, got, a lot of iron, a lot of different kinds of minerals, What else about it? It is also warming. So for a lot of women who are dealing with a lot of chill or low metabolic function, nettle could be really appropriate. It is a food, so you can just consume it like a potent leafy green, like a more nutritious kale. Yeah, but the thing about nettle is it has plant chemistry that is quite fiery, which is a benefit and potentially problematic. So the wild plants have a lot more personality than our cultivated plants. And the book is about introducing you to those plants, to getting to know those qualities, to incorporating the nettle into your life and into your menu and understanding, how it makes you feel. Is it appropriate for you? So this is where, again, there's not a one herb for all, Nettle would be good for somebody who has poor circulation, who needs to increase blood flow, who's maybe anemic. But let's also just add that nettle alone won't do it if they don't have the fat-soluble activators to absorb the minerals. So it's the weaving of the tapestry. So you're not just using an herb. The herb is part of a much bigger weaving that helps you to support your health. But I'm a big nettle fan.
Clearly. Let's talk about some other common herbs or greens that we would find not necessarily in the Northeast, but maybe other parts of the country that are common, that we go out our door and we see them and we should entertain them in our diet because fill in the blank.
Sure. So there's one super common one that's all over the world, dandelion.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, but just let's highlight the dandelion beauty and also other herbs like dandelion. This everyone has access to, so everyone can dig up the roots. They can eat the leaves. They can eat it all year long, except actually not here in the Northeast when the snow comes and it's hidden. But otherwise, we can eat it all year. And what does it have in it? It has bitter principles as well as nutrient density, as well as a high vitamin and mineral content. But it has this bitterness that stimulates digestive function. And a lot of us are dealing with digestive health issues. So some situations, dandelion would be really appropriate, and it will help invigorate digestive function, so it'll help the liver also to function well. When you do that, what do? You help a million things, It's like if you can take care of digestion and you can take care of liver, you're taking care of so many metabolic functions. So the beauty of dandelion is that, again, it's something in the category of alterative that alters the body into a healthier state gently. So you're tapping deep organ system shift by consuming this really common prolific weed on a daily basis, depending on your constitution. Again, we have to consider that, but I'm sort of speaking generally right now. And so you could be taking that dandelion into your body either as minced up leaves, as an aperitif salad to prime your gut to receive the nutrients of the rest of your meal, or you can also use the root. You can tincture it. So it can be made into food very much, but it also really moves into the herbal apothecary. And the dandelion is just a gift. It's a super serious gift. So many of us have liver issues. The dandelion is really an important plant for us to heal, I think, in so many situations.
Are there any other plants that are, around the world sort of on par with the dandelion that people could be on the lookout for?
Other ones could be burdock even, but that would be the root primarily. Chickweed is also a pretty amazing herb. It has a whole different personality. It's more cooling, it's nutritive, it's soothing. And that's really something that I feel like is a really potent, nutrient-dense leafy green that you want to eat through its growing, through the seasons that it's here with us, which in the Northeast is spring and fall, but in other parts of the world, it could be there. It's a very prolific worldwide weed. Another one that we have here and other areas of the world might have, but different species, is the violet.
Ooh.
So violas, they are really powerful foods with a high nutrient density that also have what are called anti-neoplastic qualities. So that is a big fancy word for like saying keeping cancer down or at bay. So it's a pretty impressive chemistry that humble, we step on this plant. It's like, but I'm trying to think of other ones quickly off the top of my head. But those, we have chickweed, violet, dandelion, burdock, nettle. I mean, those are pretty ubiquitous, super useful for so many different situations. Because you were asking a bit about, I think you were asking about hormone health. I can't remember, but
yes, we're always worried about hormone health over here.
Hormone health, right? And that's right? Me too, because the hormone health follows the blood sugar stability piece, but also once you've got the lifestyle and the sleep piece in order, which really is key to hormone health, we want to also talk about the adaptogens, and they're not in the Foraging and Feasting book exactly. This is a category of herb. Although I'm pushing it if I would say that burdock is an adaptogen. But anyway, the adaptogens are this category of herb that has to do with adrenal support. And so tulsi is an example, or ashwagandha, or eleutherococcus, or codonopsis, or even a little licorice root, not talking about the licorice candy. But all of what these do is they help the adrenals to handle stress. And when that happens, that allows the adrenals to get off the hook on the stress part and deal with other hormone health issues, right? So we can use all the juices that would have gone to stabilizing the stress within the adrenals, and it goes to hormone health, female, sex health or thyroid health. So
we're for all of that, and I know you're not suggesting ashwagandha in a gummy.
No, why? Where's that available?
No, they have them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm really low. Yeah, I could say that one thing you want. Another thing, so the opposite of adaptogens are concentrated sugars. So by consuming a lot of concentrated sugar, so gummies would be in that category, you're going to do the opposite of what we're trying to do with adaptogens, which is to stabilize adrenal health. When you eat a lot of concentrated sugars, you cause the roller coaster to occur, and then the adrenals get burdened with that issue. So, and so does caffeine, unfortunately, right? Everybody's all caffeinated, but the reality is caffeine is the opposite of an adaptogen as well, in my opinion. So we're a culture of high carb caffeine consuming, and so then the adrenals and the hormones and everything just, drops out, and the body is pretty wasted. And so we need to restructure, rebuild that, and that happens through nutrition, in my opinion. Plus the good, deep, restful sleep, good exercise, healthy emotional state, all of that plays, maybe even more, right?
Yeah.
Healthy emotions and good sleep might be more important than a diet or an herb.
And definitely being out in nature. I agree with you that being outside is so healing. Like the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, all of it. It all matters.
Thanks for bringing that up. And that's exactly part of Foraging and Feasting's theme, is to get people to fall in love with the plants that are all around them, because we feature ubiquitous weeds of the world. So you can get out there, tune into the plant kingdom, and connect to nature. And that reset is super powerful. Again, not more than, but maybe more than, shifting what you're having for lunch.
Dina Falconi, thanks for joining me. I so appreciate you spending time and bringing the living green world to our dinner tables. To learn more, please visit inthewild.kitchen and botanicalartspress.com. And actually, it's in the wild. Is it inthewild.kitchen or inthewild.kitchen.com?
It's inthewild.kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no .com in
no
there.
.com. Inthewild.kitchen and botanicalartspress.com. To connect on Facebook, it's Foraging and Feasting. On Instagram, Foraging and Feasting. And on YouTube, you can find Dina Falconi there under Dina Falconi. And the classes she offers are In the Wild with Dina Falconi. The book we've been speaking about is Foraging and Feasting, a Field Guide and Wild Food Cookbook. Come back and hang out and talk more with me about this. I'm fascinated. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Harvesting Happiness. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, and on behalf of my guests, Dr. Aviva Romm and Dina Falconi, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day, and remember to be kind to one another.
Keep harvesting your own happiness anytime and anywhere from the comfort of wherever you are. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes via our free app or from our libraries at toginet.com, iTunes, Google Play, and other fine podcast platforms. To learn more about Lisa's global consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Spread more joy by liking us on Facebook at Harvesting Happiness and following Lisa on Twitter at Lisa Kamen. Harvesting Happiness is produced in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU Radio Malibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.